beautiful music, we are going to go to our main speaker. He is Jim Martinez. He is a senior production manager with over 20 years of experience producing Sight into Sound programs, and he is a Houstonian. Sight into Sound is an independent nonprofit organization with a mission to turn sight into sound, enriching the lives of individuals with visual, physical, and learning disabilities. We do this through radio reading, custom recording, and audio description services. So, Jim, welcome to Houston Oasis, and take it away.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, I'm Jim Martinez. I'm the radio manager here at Sight into Sound, formerly known as Taping for the Blind, if anyone remembers that name from a few years back. We are a radio reading service, as she mentioned. We read for people who are blind, visually impaired, or have any kind of, if you have like a learning disability. Maybe someone's had a stroke and they can't use their hands anymore and they don't have the ability to read or read small print. That's where we come in. We started in 1967 reading for the Library of Congress. And what it was, it's volunteers, and it still is. It's volunteers who come in and read books, magazines, instruction manuals, Sunday school stuff, anything, whatever's not available to the Library of Congress or the Texas State Library, which is the kind of like the state version of the National Library Service, which is now how they refer to the Library of Congress, the National Library Service. So the Texas State Library is out of Austin. They send out recorders that, it's proprietary. They have like cartridges that a blind person can get, and they can get mini books through there. They started off on cassettes. I think before that they started off with reel-to-reels back then, moved to cassettes, and they went to, now you can download as well, the library service. If a book is not available through them, then that's where we come in. So we read that. We read anything. We read cookbook. I read a life insurance policy a couple of weeks ago. I read recipes, and I read a book on knitting, how to knit. I now know how to knit, but I'll never do it. But I know all the abbreviations. So I read 2 books on that. Reading a health care book right now, or like kind of like a how to lose weight kind of book. I'm reading that right now. And all of our volunteers normally would come in. Right now, we just have the staff that comes in, about 3 or 4 of us. Usually I'm the only one coming in right now. The staff comes in once or, like once every couple of weeks. We have little recording booths. The volunteers will usually come in and do that. Now, most of them, not all, but most of them are doing it from home now. And they send me a file and I upload it. We have a schedule that we have. We're a radio station for people who are blind. We read the Houston Chronicle live every day. We used to read it live 8 to 10. Now it's pre-recorded, and I air it from 12 to 2. That's all done by volunteers. And then we read all the major magazines, Newsweek, Time, Sports Illustrated, People, Smithsonian, all that. We also have 2 book hours a day. And the way you can hear us is on the Alexa. Just say, Alexa, play radio reading service on TuneIn Radio. And then you can hear us on channel 8.5 on TV. If you have a television that does not have cable, just the regular local channels, we're channel 8.5. You'll see a black screen, but you'll hear us. We're also, if you have HD radio in your car, we're HD4 on 88.7 KUHF. We're affiliated with Houston Public Media, but they pretty much just let us do our own thing. We're also streaming at our website. We also have podcasts at our website. So if you miss the programs as part of our regular schedule, you can download the podcast. Our services are free to our clients. All we need is verification that they have, glaucoma, macular degeneration, whatever the case may be. And then, so I've been here since 1997, and kind of manage the volunteers and solve problems on the computers, because everything's recorded on a computer. When I first came here, it was on reel-to-reel and cassettes, and then in the early 2000s, we moved to on computer recording. And now the past couple of decades, people have been able to record at home. And of course, the last 6 months, most people can do that at home now. So that's changed. Our criteria of how to read has changed. Our email is info@sightintosound.org, info@sightintosound.org. So if you have any questions, send us. If you're interested in being a volunteer, so yeah, you'll need some software and a microphone to record. And as long as it's quiet, no dogs barking in the background, baby crying. As long as it's quiet, well, I'll give you advice on how to do it. So our email is info@siteintosound.org, info@siteintosound.org. Any questions, comments, or?
All right. What we usually do right now is break out into breakout rooms and ask questions and take a little break, and then come back for a Q&A session. Okay. So if you want to step away, refill your coffee. If you want to join and visit with other Oasians, please do that now. And think of some questions that we can ask Jim. Thank you. We'll go into breakout rooms. I hope you had a wonderful time in your breakout room to visit with some fellow Oasians and or come up with some questions. We have a couple that we already have. We're gonna do those, and then we're gonna open it up for anyone with questions or anyone who wants to mention an idea that your breakout room came up with. As always, keep your questions and comments brief so we can get in as many in as possible. We know everyone is muted, so if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand and Abhishek can unmute you. I believe you may also have the ability to unmute yourselves now as well. So one of the questions was, what other services do you provide, Jim?
Yeah, we forgot to mention description, audio description. Before the lockdown, we would do the audio description at the Alley Theater. And we used to do the hobby, but the hobby does it in-house now. Audio description is when there's no dialogue. Like we do a play at the Alley. When there's no dialogue, a blind person doesn't know what's going on. So our volunteer gets a copy of the script, and they preview the show a couple of days ahead, so they kind of know what the cues are. And then so when they go back to do it, they know what's coming up. So when there's no dialogue, a blind person just sits there, doesn't know what's going on. So they have a headset, a little earbud, and there's a volunteer up in the booth, and they're describing the action when there's no dialogue. So that's audio description, and that's volunteer as well. We do that for the Alley. We've done the ballet every now and then. We used to do the circus whenever that was requested, and then we do it. Like I said, we used to do the hobby center, but they do it in-house now. We also do the rodeo parade. We go out there and the rodeo out in the cold, and there's a special needs area, and we pass out headsets, and our volunteers would talk to a mic, and we had a script, same script they have on TV, so we knew what was coming, the trail rides and what the numbers were and who was on it. So we did a little broadcast to the people down there, because again, they can't see it. So, and then we also did 3 rodeo performances, and before the lockdown. So I'm pretty sure we'll do that again once we get back up to normal, whenever that is. So that's audio description. That's volunteers as well, and that's a whole different training than reading from a book or a magazine. So that's our third service that we provide, and it's free.
Wow, that is so exciting.
Paige has a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I had 2 questions, Jim. And one is, I was just curious about the demographics of your volunteers, like, is there anything you notice difference between male, female, young, old, ethnic identity or whatever? And the other question would be, what is the training process?
Yeah, I would say about 75–80% of our volunteers are retired. Older, they have time on their hands, so they're able to come in. Back when people were able to come in, and a good majority of them are still reading at home. We trained them. They thought it was hard and impossible. Then once we trained them, it's like, oh, is that all? So we had people reading from home before, but now it's everybody now. And they send me a file. I upload it to our station and schedule it. We have part of our regular schedule. That's so that's pretty much the majority of the makeup of our volunteers. The second question, I forgot the second question.
What does the training consist of?
Right now, if you send me an email, if you want to call, I tell you what, there's free audio software to download now, and I tell you which ones to download, and there's training videos a part of that. And I also send a training video on how to do the microphone. I do that as well, and that's all in the video that I send and the information that I send. Basically, like I've mentioned before, as long as you're quiet, most people record in their bedroom closet, a walk-in closet. Their clothes are their acoustic foam, and it does absorb sound. So, especially if you have a carpeted floor, or record in a small den or something, just as long as it's quiet. It doesn't have to be perfect. We have studios that sound perfect, but that's what they're built for. But we know, and our listeners know that, what's going on. So you just don't want background noise, all the time. If you have a fan, put it on the floor. Don't put it next to you, next to the microphone, because it'll pick up all that. So little things like that. It just and that's part of the email that I'll send you. So if you're interested.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is there anything, this was one question, is there anything we would need to purchase to start our own sound studio for this? You mentioned the free, downloads and things. But.
Yeah, the software is free. If you don't, external mic is best. Those USB mics that go into your computer, those are best. If you already have one, or a little headset mic, those are good. I've had some people, they're in such a small room that the internal microphone on their computer worked well, because they were just enclosed and it sounded quiet. There was no background noise. So the USB microphones, you can get them at Best Buy or Amazon. They range from $100 to $200. All depends on what you want to spend. But if you're in an enclosed area that's real small, your internal mic on your microphone probably will work.
All right.
We have a question from Eric. Where do you think you stand with regards to your capacity versus demand for services?
There'll always be a demand. I know technology has helped out a lot, and there was talk a few years ago that we may go out of business, and the exact opposite happened, because most people who are blind or visually impaired, a lot of them are low income. They can't afford a smartphone or a computer, and so that's where we come in. Like I said, we're on channel 8.5 on TV, and we're on HD4, HD radio, 88.7, and plus we're on the Alexa. The biggest thing with blind visually impaired is the Alexa. That's the other game changer besides the smartphone. I would say about 75% now of our listeners listen on the Alexa. I get calls at least once a week. They call me and they say that our Alexa is down. I'm thinking, well, that's not our Alexa, that's your Alexa. But I help them anyway, and I've with all the phone calls that I've taken, I've kind of figured out how to help them. Usually, you just unplug it and plug it back in, because the Alexa is always updating. When it updates, settings change. So usually, it's like a computer. Just, reboot it, and it's usually 99% of the time it's okay. So the Alexa has been huge. We used to, the way we started out, we used to send out radios that only picked up our station, kind of like closed circuit radio. And then we did that for decades, but the Alexa's changed that. We no longer get requests for those radios. We refer them to the Alexa if they don't have a computer, and 9 times out of 10 they usually have an Alexa anyway. So.
Mike has a question.
Yes, can anyone access the Alexa content? Is it free for anyone who has Alexa?
Yeah, right now our Alexa is just our streaming part. You can't download the specific podcast yet. That's our next step to do that. We're on the Google as well, and then we're going to get a skill to do for all there are now other smart speakers out there as well, Sonos and the Apple as well. Our next step is to get a skill for, you'll do one command and it'll go to any smart speaker you have. But right now on the Alexa, just our live stream. We can't do individual podcasts yet. If you want to do the individual podcast, just go to our website, citingthesound.org, and click on the podcast page. You can download and listen at your convenience on the podcast page. You don't have to wait. Once it airs on our schedule, then it's available on the podcast. So.
But the stream is free, right?
Yeah, stream is free. All of our services are free.
this accessible out of state?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah. So
everywhere?
for the longest time, it was just accessible here in Houston. But again, smartphone changed that. Alexa changed that. So yeah, go to our website, go to the Alexa, wherever, anywhere. So if you have relatives out of state, they can access as well.
Okay. We have the question, are any special talents needed to be a volunteer?
No, as long as you speak well, speak clearly. We're not looking for English teachers, but just speak that you're understandable. You don't slur your words or talk too fast. I talk too fast, but I know that when I'm reading, so I gotta pace myself. Just normal speaking, as if you're talking to one person, even though on our stream you maybe have thousands listening. We have a bigger listenership than ever before. People listen to us on the TV. One time, they, so no special talent, just understandable. Don't be monotone. And we're not looking for voiceover talents either. Either several of our listeners are voiceover artists or trying to get into it. But don't be in work mode, audition mode. You know, don't try to impress anyone. Just read the material. We don't editorialize or make comments, because the information we read from magazines and books, it's just information. It's educational. It's not commentary or opinion. So we've been reading the Voters Guide even before I got here. So the League of Women Voters, makes that available. You can download it now from their website, and we read it and we air it, and it's on our podcast page as well. And it's 8 hours long. So it took 4 of us to read it. So but that's available. It's one of our public service, because a blind person wants to vote too, visually impaired. So they get all the candidates. And so, but no special talents, just you're understandable, that you're reading to someone else. It's not about you in that regard. It just get the information out. The lady who can't go to church anymore, she wants her Sunday school stuff. So we read that for her, Yes.
Susan.
Is that
Yeah.
me? Okay. I was wondering earlier, and again, about pronunciation. There are even on professional radio, there's a lot of mispronunciation of proper names and unusual words. What do y'all do about problems like that?
Yeah, we accept the American or the British pronunciation of a word. And then you have, because of the smartphone and the computer, we can look up words. You go to YouTube. I go to YouTube a lot and just how to pronounce whatever word. And even then, it's 3 different pronunciations of the same word. So, what I tell people is be consistent. If you're reading a word or a name that you never heard before, a foreign name that you never heard before, and you probably know what's wrong, be consistent and say that the same way all the way through that piece. Because if you say it 4 different ways, they might think it's 4 different people you're talking about. So if you're wrong, you're wrong, just keep saying it that way. So at least you're consistent with that. That's little stuff like that. And usually we just talk it out, kind of figure it out as people ask me that question. So it's case by case. So.
And do your volunteers get to choose their material, or do you just assign it to them?
It depends what we have available. Sometimes, I may have a reader for a certain magazine or 2 or 3 magazines, and I'll let them choose. I got this, and our program's either half hour or an hour. And I guess also depends on your time. So I say, okay, I have these 3 magazines available. Here they are. Tell me which one you want. And then when they pick, now I'm down to 2, then I ask the next volunteer, go from there. So that's pretty much how it goes from there. So yeah.
Charles had a very good question. What drew you to this work? Any personal reasons you'd like to share?
My background is audio engineering, recording music, and so I came here just needing a job, not planning to stay, maybe a year, maybe 2. And then I realized I'm getting to do what I want, plus I'm helping people. And that once that becomes addictive. You just this person got what they needed from you and they thank you. And it kind of just, one begats the other, and it kind of just flowed from there. And that was 1997. And I plan to stay here a year, maybe 2. So and so now it just you get to know the volunteers. The volunteers come in once, or they used to come in once a week, sometimes twice or 3 times a week. And we have some volunteers that read anything. So tell me what you want, I'll read whatever, and they do. And others just like their program, whatever they read, and they won't read anything else, which is fine as long as we know. And you kind of gauge it from there. And then, but yeah, once you see, we get Christmas cards every year from our listeners. People just thankful, very, the gratitude is there. So that gets addictive too when you do that. I've been doing that for over 20 years now. So it's just every day for me. So it's,
We have one question here. Do you have this service for young kids, or do you have any special sections for young kids?
No, we used to a long time ago. We never got much feedback on that, even though people sort of asked for it. The blind services out of Austin, there's an Austin School for the Blind and other types of services in Austin. And they do, if you need kids services, I would contact them because they can help you, and they've been doing that for decades. So they know how that works. So I need the Austin services, Austin School for the Blind. There's some others. You can just Google that, and they'll help you because they have buildings of employees of people who do that for kids. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions? Type it in, or
Again, our email is info@sightingtosound.org. Our direct phone number is 713-622-2767. We're in the Gallery area. If you're familiar with Highland Village, we're in that area. The big central food market, if you've ever been there in Highland Village, we're right behind there. Our street runs parallel with Westheimer. Across street is Wesleyan. So we're right behind it. We're in the neighborhood. We're surrounded by apartments. We're one of the few buildings left. Everything else is apartments around us. So 713-622-2767. I'll probably be the one answering the phone. Right now I'm the only employee coming in like 90% of the time. So best time to reach me is late mornings, early afternoons. And we can talk, we'll figure it out if you're interested in volunteering. And all of our services are free for our listeners. So if you want to pass that along to people who have issues.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's been very interesting finding out. Do we have another question? Sorry.
Yes, one more question. Did you do the ballot for the text-to-speech on the Harris County machines?
No, all we do is provide the audio for the voters guide that the League of Women's Voters in Houston does. They print it out, they do it, and then all we do is read it. So if you want to go to right now, it's at our website. It's airing right now on the air right now. Like I said, it's 8 hours long, so I air it sparingly throughout the last 2 weeks. So and I want to air it because that's a lot of work that we did, 8 hours. I just wanted, if you're interested in reading, let's say we give you a half-hour program, it's going to take you just double your time. So if you do a half-hour program, it's going to take you at least an hour to record. You're going to start and stop and all that. So if you do a 1 hour program, it'll take you at least 2 hours to record at minimum. So just double your time if you're interested in reading. Keep that in mind. So our email, again, info@sightingtosound.org, or call us as well. So.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jim, for all you do for our community. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Special thanks to Jim Martinez from Sight into Sound and Smythe and Taylor from Colorado. No, thank you. Tonight, be sure to join us for another Corona Convo tonight at 8 p.m. with Oasis doctors Richard Andrews and Will Judy. Keep an eye out for future emails, Facebook posts, meetup, however you keep in contact with us for our future gatherings. Have a great week and stay safe out there.